teacher for 33 years, so I know you have to change your lesson plans a lot. So as usual, I have presented, or I have written down things that I thought I was going to stick to or written for them, and I'll probably freelance a lot of this due to time constraints. I am Delegate Walter Duke. I'm delighted to see a nice crowd here, and thank you all, each one of you, for coming. My role is brief introductions of the other panelists, the rationale of why education is most assuredly, an important component in economic development, and also to provide some overview on several educational audits that were done in 2010 and 11 and where we need to go from there. So, the introduction of the panel, I'm very pleased to have two veteran educator administrators from the Eastern Panhandle on today's Education Forum panel with me to share their thoughts and perspectives and challenges and ideas. First, I have Manny Arvon, Berkeley County Superintendent of Schools for 19 years. During his tenure, Manny has overseen a tremendous growth in Berkeley County. It's the second largest Berkeley school system in Berkeley County. It is the largest transportation system in the Eastern Panhandle, with 209 buses at $95,000 each and close to $4 a gallon diesel fuel. So that's all the part of the transportation to get the students to schools so they can get a sufficient education. So we're glad to have Manny here. He's overseen in his tenure about a $250 million, that's $250 million, that's with a B, construction projects in Berkeley County to meet the growing needs of the physical facilities here to be adequate. We also have Dr. Peter Chekovich with us. He is president of Blue Ridge Community and Technical College for 12 years. And he's been there to oversee a tremendous growth in Blue Ridge Community and Technical College. It's the largest CTC, two-year institution in the state of West Virginia. It is the third largest student headcount higher ed facility, only behind WVU and Marshall in the entire state. He has overseen the growth of it to the point where a new facility was built, and he is now located in a new facility south and west of Martinsburg for the CTC. So thank you both for being with us on the panel. I have two truths to share with you. The first truth to grasp is education is not a standalone smokestack or silo that is separate from the business community and economic development. Education affects the economy, and the economy affects education. It's a symbiotic relationship. They are intertwined. The second truth to share is education is not a big bank of maybe a dozen on-off switches that you can throw to do this and don't do that. But instead, it is a big bank. Picture a bank of sliding switches from here to the end of this wall that are just filled with hundreds of sliding switches that must be adjusted to get the best educational outcomes and the proper return on your dollars of investment. So Doosan controls these levers, these switches. Some of them are local, some are state, too many are state actually, some are federal, some are controlled by society, U.S. society. When there's a problem in society, the schools suddenly, that hand comes in and adjusts one of those levers, which causes the school system to then suddenly inherit a problem that they have to deal with in an education manner. Even world events, you mentioned diesel fuel. If diesel fuel goes through the roof because of world events, and it goes from $2 and something a gallon to nearly $4 a gallon, that impacts the education system. The legislative auditor performed an audit. It's an 87-page audit of the Department of Education to try to deal with some particular issues that education was having. Had to do with a better education results and also a more efficient use of state tax dollars for best bang for the buck. A year after that, Governor Tomlin commissioned another outside group to do a study and audit, and this 151-page audit was done to make recommendations, 50 of which were for cost savings and efficiencies, and the other 80 for delivery of a better education product. There's a 43-page summary of that document Here's a 129-page reply from the Department of Education. Here's a 20-page PowerPoint from the Department of Education in response. So we have studied it to death. There are lots of things in the audit that are cost savings that could have been realized and have been, and many of which, frankly, the Department of Education has moved to partially accomplish. However, there are many other aspects that we can do, should do, I think, that could go a long way on that. That gets to this sheet, this number 3 on your tables, and it was a part of the first audit in 2010, and there's a chart there that shows the amount of positions and funding in the Fund 0313, which is the Department of Education's budget. The largest column there, which is state aid and other programs, that's the school aid formula that goes to the schools. So that information shows the growth that was of concern to the legislative auditor. In addition to that, on the back of that side, the next audit that was done in 2011, it shows at the top how West Virginia compared to some other states in total administrators in the central office, and we had 54 as compared to the other ones you can see down through there. Virginia, I think, had 37. And if we would do just this one cost savings measure, at the bottom you can see it would generate about a $21.5 million, $21.2 million in cost savings that could be directed to the classroom. So that's an important aspect of where we need to go to do those kinds of things that can redirect the spending that currently goes to central staff and so on in Charleston, and instead direct those to teachers. So those are some of the ideas that we have in front of us and where we need to go. As one example, here's a chart which I did not share, which shows a 7-year look back of the total number of teachers who are 0 to 5 years experience, and there's about 5,000 each year in West Virginia total. Of that amount, about 900 each year leave the profession within those first 5 years. So that's another thing, that about a dozen or so of those switches on this wall from here to there would impact the retention of new teachers and the attracting of teachers that would stay in the profession. So I'm out of time, and I'm going to turn it over to Manny Arbon, and he will share his perspectives from Berkeley County's point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'd like to introduce someone in the crowd. I was looking across the room, and I have a student advisory council that, believe me, they're much rougher than my teacher organizations, because when I meet with them and they have concerns and we talk about all sorts of things, but one of the folks who just sort of stood out, and I met with him regularly, singularly, is a young man by the name of Kevin Jenkins. Kevin Jenkins is governor of the state government high school association, where representatives from each counties are represented in a government organization. Kevin was elected governor. Kevin, please stand. And it gets better. Next week, I think, in the next 10 days, he'll be enrolling in Harvard. He's the only West Virginia high school student being enrolled in Harvard this year. Their acceptance rate is less than 5%. So we're so proud of him. Also, other graduates from his class did very well. The graduation rate this year, every time we get a chance to talk about our students, the graduation rate in the state was 84%. In Berkeley County this past year, the graduation rate was 90%. Musselman High School leading the way with a graduation rate of 95%. So those are the things that are important. Those are the things that we should be talking about. As superintendent, as Walter said, I've been superintendent for 19 years. I was an instructional leader, but when I became a superintendent, I became an expert in facilities and buildings. It's amazing what I know now about bathrooms and kitchens and all of those things. But the most important part of this is I have less than 5 minutes, and to Senator Cole, it's just like they tell you at the SBA, I drive 5 hours and they give me 5 minutes to do my sales pitch to try to collect millions of dollars to bring back and build school facilities. When I look at what our purpose, and it's always about student achievement, and there's so many things on each of the topics that Walter mentioned to you. I could sit here and probably spend an hour or two on each of those, because there's a lot of debate and there's a lot of questions on education. I've been in this profession for 42 years. I grew up in a family, there's a few physicians and lawyers and CPAs, but mostly we're educators. And I grew up sitting around the table talking about education, and then we look at what's happening today. And a few facts about Berkeley County Schools. Since I've been superintendent, we picked up over 7,000 students. To put that in perspective, Jefferson County has 9,000 students in their school district, but the 7,000 students that we have picked up in increased enrollment is larger than 42 districts out of the 55 counties in the state of West Virginia. Along with that, I always picture ourselves as two large Ferris wheels going in opposite directions, because during that same time that we have picked up 7,000 students, we've hired approximately 3,000 teachers. That sounds great, but it's not good news. This morning, or yesterday morning, we welcomed our Chamber of Commerce 87 new teachers. I have 25 openings this morning as we speak. But during that same time, we average about 200 new teachers a year. We're picking up about 400 or 500 new students. This past year, 453 new students. And we're having these Ferris wheels. We have teachers coming in, teachers going out, new students coming in, students transferring out. Along with that, then, we have the legislature and State Board of Education making and dictating policies, rules, and how we're going to operate. And some of the news that I'm hearing this morning is, it's encouraging, or this afternoon, is the fact about locality. It is important as we talk and we think and we take action. Local boards of education must have a say in how we operate our school districts. It's imperative that we do so. Second thing I want to talk about is the importance of having quality people. We cannot afford an education to warehouse incompetency. It can't happen. We talk about having the best people. The most important person is the person we put in front of our students each and every day. Yeah, superintendent's a pretty important job, but it's not as important as the person who's teaching your child. We have to be sure that we can afford to put that person there. A lot of things that concern me when it comes to funding education. There's a lot of money spent. Grab me when I go to pull my finger. But what we have to think about is that when we make rules about lowering class size, because there's research out there that will support that, but when you do that, you also must think about increasing the school aid formula to pay for that, because what happens, I spent the first 17 years of my life in southern West Virginia. And I go back there often, and I understand the struggles there, but I also understand the struggles that we have here in the Eastern Panhandle. And it's important to be competitive. With the change in the school aid formula a few years ago, each county was given back a portion of their taxes for local control. We put 100% of our dollars towards teacher salaries in order to make us competitive, to ensure that not only that we can recruit blue chip teachers, but we can also retain them.
Good afternoon. My name is Pete Chakovich. I'm president of Blue Ridge Community and Technical College here in Martinsburg. And I believe it was Butch Pennington who gave me some advice really early on in my career. And the thing he told me was never tell people your problems. Half of them don't care, the other half are kind of glad it happened to you. And as president, I've been reminded of that many times. My presentation will be in three parts. A quick data share, some facts and figures about Blue Ridge, measures that we take to meet job training needs and workforce development needs in our region. And in a perfect world, if we had all the money in the world we wanted, what would we do differently? Quick data share. I'm going to drop back to 1995. Blue Ridge was part of Shepherd College at that time, now Shepherd University. We had about 500 students and we weren't really quite sure who they were because the data collection was not done disaggregatedly like that. 2015, jumped ahead 20 years. Our head count is now at 5,500 students. We're the third largest public institution in the state of West Virginia, and the third fastest growing community college in the United States. Quite an honor. We have about 30 certificate and degree programs. If we had to divide up our student population, about 80% of the students are in what we call occupational careers or occupational degrees. They're going to the world of work when they finish with us. Another 20% are transfer students. They'll go 1 or 2 years to Blue Ridge and then transfer to a 4-year institution for a baccalaureate degree. And another thing that we're quite proud of is our workforce development area led by Dr. Ann Shipley. We do a ton of customized contract training. Right here in this building, all of the dealers came through Blue Ridge. We trained 500 dealers so that they could open when gaming was passed in 2009. That was quite an effort. Measures to meet job training needs. What do? We take surveys. Many of those are in concert with the Chambers of Commerce. We have grant programs, West Virginia Advanced, House Bill 3009, and technical program grants. And I've got to give our legislature kudos on this one. My colleagues that are in the surrounding states are absolutely envious over those 3 grant programs. And what they allow us to do is to be very attentive and very responsive to training and development needs in business and industry. And just to give you a couple of examples, Macy's, Quad Graphics, Ecolab, SROX, soon to be Procter & Gamble, and we're just getting into the details of that now. We do have advisory committees. Every one of our technical programs and every one of our degrees has an advisory committee composed of professionals from the field, so they're current and relevant, and they work with our faculty to keep our curriculum current and relevant so that when our students graduate, they can hit the ground with their feet running. We also have a very good working relationship with the West Virginia Development Office and the local economic development authorities. They keep us apprised of what they think are developments on the horizon so that we can be responsive to those. Third, in a perfect world, what would we do if we had all the money we needed? I'm going to answer that question a little differently. We're just looking for an adequate budget. We don't want all the money in the world. We want an adequate budget that's fair. Our state funding has been cut 3 years out of the last 3 years. Our enrollment has gone up over 30% in those years. And when you've got a crisscross like that, it doesn't take long before you start to feel the pinch. And what's going to happen if it continues in that pattern is we will raise tuitions to the extent that we can. That's always a problem because we're going to eliminate some students attending, and we're going to have fewer services that those students will have remaining. I would encourage our legislator to continue those grant programs. Again, West Virginia Advanced 3009, House Bill 3009, and our technical program grants. And those are some of you that operate businesses here in the room may be very interested in those because they can help you with your training needs. Invest in the future, make the hard decisions. Tuition only pays for about 50% of what it costs to go to a public institution in West Virginia. So our state allocation is a partnership that we just can't do without. And to view higher ed as a public good and not a private gain. Thank you.